We just stepped on their face with a hobnail boot and broke their nose. We just crushed their face.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Glory UGA podcast, where today on the show, I'm going to explain why Georgia's inside linebacker room just might be the most talented position unit in all of college football. But first, if you haven't already and you're a diehard Georgia fan, you're going to want to go ahead and subscribe to this channel right now for a lot more content designed for you guys, the most diehard Georgia fans out there. So subscribe, like, comment, all of that, guys, is greatly appreciated. And of course, check out the Glory UGA podcast, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever, for full episodes of our pod and a lot more content out there for all you diehard Georgia fans. But all right, let's go ahead and dive into today's show. Now, look, I told you earlier in the week, we did a video earlier in the week, kind of breaking down some of the intel that we're getting coming out of spring practice, coming out of the first scrimmage. And there are two names on the defensive side of the football that I continue to hear over and over and over again, that continue to be brought up to me over and over and over repeatedly. And that is Chris Cole and Justin Williams. Two inside linebackers, five-star inside linebackers from Georgia's 2024 recruiting class, rising sophomores. So I continue to hear about that and hear about those guys, and I've told you that. I brought that here on this channel a couple of different times. But the thing is, it's not just Chris Cole. It's not just Justin Williams. We tend to emphasize the newer names that we're hearing, guys that maybe haven't made as much of an impact as we get excited about them. We always want to know, like, who's the next one? Who's that next guy? And it seems like both Cole and Williams very well could be some of those next guys. Next guys up, they're going to be big-time players for Georgia. But it's not just them at the inside linebacker room. It is the entire inside linebacker room at Georgia. C.J. Allen, who we know has been playing a lot for Georgia the past years, since day one really at Georgia, he is taking the next step. I continue to hear that. He's becoming more of a leader, more of a vocal leader out there with guys like Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson moving on. Raylan Wilson, who I think is obscenely physically gifted, he's starting to put it together. And all of that, all this that I keep hearing about this inside linebacker room at large has had me thinking about the talent in that room and asking myself the question, is this the most talented room? Not just on the Georgia roster. I feel like it is. When you come about just the Georgia roster, I think it's pretty clear to me. We have some talented rooms. We have talent all over the roster, but I don't know if we have a spot anywhere really close to inside linebacker the way we've recruited that position of late. But beyond just Georgia, is this the most talented inside linebacker room in our most talented position unit, not just linebackers, position unit in all of college football? And look, guys, I know that there are other really talented position units around the country. You got Ohio State, off the top of my head here, the wide receiver unit there. Of course, you got Jeremiah Smith. Anytime you got Jeremiah Smith, who might just be the best player in all college football, you got a pretty strong room there. But it's not just him. You got Carnell Tate, who did some good things for them this year. Brandon Ennis, Quincy Porter as a freshman. Those guys haven't done as much, but they're still really talented guys, highly recruited guys coming out of high school. Penn State might not have the depth, but the top of the line running backs they've got with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, I mean, that's as good of a 1-2 punch as you're going to find in college football. So that's a really strong position unit. I think Clemson's defensive line gets undersold sometimes. I know their defense wasn't great last year, but they got a ton of talent on the defensive line. When you look at guys like Peter Woods, DeMonte Capehart, if you want to throw in with them basically running a 4-3, TJ Parker as a pass rusher, that's a really strong defensive line unit. So there are a ton of talented rooms out there. Of course there are. Georgia's not the only talented team in America, but I think if you look at it on paper, I don't think any of those units that I mentioned, like maybe Ohio State comes close, especially when you got a guy like Jeremiah Smith, but none of them really match the recruiting profile that the Georgia inside linebacker room has. Like top to bottom, right? Top to bottom in terms of like recruiting profile, where these guys are ranked, it's hard to find another unit that would match that. So let's just run through just the recruiting rankings. Hey, look, guys, I know that recruiting rankings don't tell you the whole story all the time. We'll get to that. But let's just start on paper here with the recruiting rankings. You got C.J. Allen. I'm going to start with him because he's a projected starter. He's going to start for us. I have no doubt about that. Number 76 nationally coming out of high school, so a top 100, fringe top 75 guy. Number 6 inside linebacker in the country, 6'1", 235. He's played a lot of football for Georgia. Raylan Wilson, he was a 5-star guy coming out in the 2023 class. He was number 29 overall, number 4 inside linebacker, flipped him for Michigan late in that cycle. And then we mentioned earlier, the 2024 class, Justin Williams was not only the number 1 linebacker in the country, let's not forget that, guys, he was a top 10 player nationally, according to the On3 industry rankings, which is what I'm using here. Number 6 overall in the 2024 class. You got Chris Cole, who wasn't quite as highly ranked as Justin Williams coming out of high school, but he was also a 5-star prospect, number 32 overall, number 3 inside linebacker. So in 2024, 2024, we landed the number 1 and number 3 inside linebackers in all of college football. And then this year, what did we do? We followed that up with, oh yeah, landing the number 1 inside linebacker in the entire country according to the On3 industry rankings in Zayden Walker, the number 28 prospect overall, a 5-star guy. And then Anthony Crua, who is still a 4-star prospect in his own right, but I mean, guys, he's only number 355, right? Still a 4-star guy. But hey, as I said with Anthony Crua, we did a video breaking down every single prospect in Georgia's 2025 recruiting class. You turn on the tape of Anthony Crua, man, I'd be hard-pressed to say there's 354 players in the country better than that guy. That dude's a stud. So on paper, I just read the numbers out to you. You can absolutely make the argument, just from a sheer recruiting ranking standpoint, that this Georgia inside linebacker room is one of the, if not the single most talented room in the entire country from a recruiting ranking standpoint. But as we all know, I mentioned this a few minutes ago, let's go there. Rankings don't necessarily mean everything. At some point, you have to prove that you can play. Like, that's the bigger question here. Recruiting rankings are great. That's awesome. And usually, they're very instructive. They give you a pretty strong idea of who's actually going to be good. It's just not an exact science. But can you play is the question you really have to answer. That's kind of ultimately what matters when we're talking about why we're recruiting these guys. We want to find those guys that can play and produce for us on the field. And that is what keeps me from definitively saying that the Georgia inside linebacker room is the most talented room in the country. Because the on-field production, let's just be real, guys. I'm a Georgia guy. If you're watching this video, you're probably a Georgia guy, Georgia gal. But let's also be objective here. Let's be real, all right? The on-field production from the players in that room, they're all very young. They're still very young. There's a lot of inexperience in that room. But the on-field production to this point in their careers, respectively, hasn't quite matched the recruiting production. Yet. Not yet. But if the coaches clinic a couple weeks ago is any indication, if what I'm hearing coming out of the first scrimmage last week is any indication, that might be changing in a hurry, y'all. Like, I'm talking real quick. So let's run through these players real fast, all right? So, again, C.J. Allen, I am very confident saying that guy is going to start for Georgia this year to open the season and probably all season long. Like, he's that guy. He's been playing since day one. And he was earning, rave reviews from the coaching staff from, opening weeks of spring practice his freshman year. Kirby Smart does not typically gush about freshmen. He wants to temper expectations for these guys. But he was openly talking about this guy is just way ahead of your average freshman. From the moment the guy stepped on campus and he took the field out there his first spring. And what we saw that first year, he played a lot for us. It wasn't perfect, but you saw the talent, right? And then I thought he was significantly better in year 2. I was actually somewhat critical of him in year 1. And I don't think that I was overly critical of him. I just think people were pumping him up a little too much as a freshman, looking at what he's going to be and not what he was as a freshman. Yes, he was way ahead of your average freshman inside linebacker. Of course he was, no doubt. But he was a freshman. He made a lot of freshman mistakes. He wasn't always playing 100 miles an hour because he didn't always know what was going on. He was victimized with very poor eye discipline quite a bit as a freshman, which happens. The Auburn game stands out to me a lot there, with on the road there, and of course the Hugh Freeze. Auburn, whether it's Hugh Freeze, Gus Malzahn, for years has always had that misdirection, the window dressing element of their offense, and they used a lot of that and got our eyes. The misdirection they got us all over the field, and they were able to use Peyton Thorne some quarterback runs, and he bust off a couple explosive runs because our eyes were in the wrong spot. And he was one of those guys that got victimized that day in other games as well. But I thought he was much better in that regard, and really it all over the field in his entire game in year 2. And I do believe going into year 3, C.J. Allen's poised for an all-SEC, potentially all-American caliber year 3. And let's not forget, guys, let's go back and trace the history of Georgia inside linebackers in the Kirby Smart era. Year 3 is the year where all these big-time Georgia linebackers under Kirby Smart, under Glenn Schumann, have kind of exploded. Roquan Smith, maybe the best Georgia defensive player that I've ever had the benefit of watching. I know there's a lot of great Georgia players. When I was younger, David Pollock was that guy, in middle school, high school. Awesome. Loved him. But hey, Roquan, in 2017, That was something special, man. That was something special. That was year 3. As a freshman, Roquan didn't do all that much. As a sophomore, he played more. You started to see the talent more, but he wasn't what he was in 2017. But 2017 comes, and that dude's the best. I thought he was the best player in America. Like, I thought he should have won the Heisman Trophy. Like, if you're asking me, like, who was the best player at his position in 2017, like, I know Baker Mayfield was great, but was he better quarterback than Roquan Smith was an inside linebacker? I don't know, man. I don't know. So that dude was a stud, and he exploded, became the Butkus Award winner in year 3. And you look at guys like Nakobe Dean's another one. Year 3 in 2021, Butkus Award winner. Did some good things as a freshman, did some better things as a sophomore. Year 3, different animal, right? Even Quay Walker, year 1, year 2, he had a big learning curve coming out of high school because he didn't really truly play real inside linebacker. He's more of an edge rusher. So year 1, year 2 was a learning process for him. Year 3, started to play a lot more, and I was like, okay, like this guy's going to be legit, and that's why I said coming into 2021 is like, I love Nakobe Dean. I think Quay Walker's going to be better, and as in his 4th year, he was, in my opinion, he got drafted higher too. So year 3 though, you start to see him really kind of take that step, and then Jalen Walker as well, our most recent Butkus Award winner. It was year 3. He was used in a situation as a pass rusher his first 2 years on campus. I still will never get over him only playing 12 snaps in the SEC championship game against Alabama in 2023. He's your most disruptive defensive player by far, and the Duke only got on the field 12 times on 12 different snaps because he wasn't quite ready to play full-time inside linebacker. Well, what happened in year 3? Yeah, that changed. Duke played all the time, whether it was inside linebacker, edge rusher. The guy was all over the field. His versatility allowed him to be on the field a lot more. But that was year 3, and then he becomes Georgia's 3rd Butkus Award winner under Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart. So it's starting to look and sound to me, based on what I'm hearing, that CJ, and what I'm hearing and seeing, go back to the coaches clinic, that CJ Allen might just be the next in line to be that All-American caliber inside linebacker for Georgia. He's grown a lot. I imagine that's going to continue to be the case as we progress through this year and through his career. And then you go to Raylan Wilson, who's a guy that, man, coming out of high school, I absolutely love this guy. Again, he was committed to Michigan. We were able to flip him late in that cycle, and I thought that was a huge win for Georgia because physically, his skill set's off the charts, man. The tools this guy has, it's unbelievable. But he hasn't been as much of a fixture on the field for Georgia inside linebacker as his running mate and his classmate in CJ Allen because, well, part of his injuries, right? Go back to his freshman year. I loved him coming out of high school, but he got banged up in fall camp, missed the first month or so of the season. CJ Allen didn't deal with that, so he was more ready to play early on. He kind of earned that role. And then Raylan comes back, and he's got to play catch-up, and he did. He got on the field some, but not as much as a freshman. Played a lot more last year in year 2. But the thing with Raylan is, like, I've always felt if there's an area that he needs to improve, it's like his instincts. And is that something you can improve? I don't know. But he's also a guy like CJ Allen as a young player, was victimized with eye discipline. He was victimized quite a bit last year. But when that guy knows what to do, like when his head's not spinning and he's not thinking too much out there, like see ball, get ball, he's as good as we've got. Like the guy is awesome. Like physically, silent sideline type guy. He's an explosive runner. He's also an explosive tackler. He actually will bring the lumber and he will hit you. And I go back to the Texas game. Like both Texas games, I thought were the best games that guy played all year, really his entire career, his first 2 years in Athens. Why? Well, Texas doesn't really have a quarterback with Quinn Ewers last year that's a running threat. He just wasn't. So they did not use misdirection the way that Alabama did, that when we played them in September, the way that Auburn did when we played them a little bit last year, but also back in 2023. So he wasn't, like his eyes weren't all over the place. They were not tempting him with poor eye discipline the way that some of those other teams were with all the eye candy stuff. And so when he was just see ball, get ball, the dude's flying around the field making plays, man, because he's that kind of player. So it was a matter of him just kind of growing up, getting more comfortable with the system, and just knowing what to do. And what I've seen from him, going back to the coaches clinic, and what I continue to hear about him is that he is taking that next step. And if that's the case, if he starts to put it all together with the raw physical tools this guy has, watch out, man. Like that guy, like the year 3 theory with Georgia linebackers could absolutely apply to Raylan Wilson just as much as it could apply to CJ Allen. Looking like a different guy right now. So those guys will probably be the starters for Georgia inside linebacker. And that's a heck of a 1-2 punch at inside linebacker. It's about as good as anybody's going to have in the entire country. But here's what separates Georgia's inside linebacker room. It ain't just them, y'all. Like, that's your 1-2 punch? Okay. Well, the two guys we have behind them might actually be more physically gifted, might be more talented from like a physical tool standpoint. And that's what I think will determine the ceiling of this room in 2025. The progress of guys like Chris Cole and Justin Williams, certainly in their second year in the system, and maybe even a freshman, don't want to expect too much from a freshman, but a young guy, a talented young guy in Zayden Walker coming in this 2025 class. And look, I listed Chris Cole as one of my top 10 players to watch prior to spring practice when I was trying to preview that for you guys. So you better believe that my eyes were on him when I got a chance to see him at the coaches clinic a couple weeks ago. And dear Lord, I mean, you knew this just from watching last year, but now that he kind of knows what's going on and he's flying around the field even faster, this guy's ceiling is just off the charts, man. Like off the freaking charts. It's exciting, man. It gets me freaking excited. He's playing faster, and I'm just telling you, he's going to be a problem for opposing offenses this year because we're going to use him all over the field. He's an interesting guy. I think physically he always reminds me, when I see him out there, he reminds me of Quay Walker. Taller, longer, he's putting some weight on, has the frame like Quay did. Quay a little time to add some weight on, and Cole's starting to do that himself. And he has the ability to rush the passer off the edge like Quay Walker did. Also is strong enough, stout enough to play the run between the tackles at like playing true off-the-ball linebacker. And we're going to use him in that regard. Like, we're going to use him all over the field. I think we're going to use him a lot like we used Jalen Walker this year because we played him in a third down role last year when we had some injuries with guys like Smile Monday going out. And I think he can play true inside linebacker for us. So I think he's going to be a problem for opposing offenses with his physicality, his athleticism, and now his knowledge of the system going into year 2. And then Justin Williams, the other guy in the 2025 class that didn't really play as much last year, kind of got lost in Chris Cole's shadow there a little bit. Let's not forget, again, this guy was the number 1 inside linebacker in the 2024 recruiting class. And the problem for him last year is he wasn't big enough, right? He was learning all that, sure, but he was like 210 pounds maybe. He's still thin, okay? He still hasn't gotten his weight up to the point that I would like it to be at, but he's bigger than he was last year. He's just one of those guys that he's trying to gain weight, guys. Kirby even alluded to this a couple weeks ago in one of his press conferences. He's trying to gain weight. Some guys just have a harder time. Their metabolism just burns those calories a lot faster than other guys. So he's having a hard time keeping the weight on. But right now, I'd say he's probably about like 215, 220. I would like to see him closer to 225, 230. If we can get him there, I think that would be a great playing weight for him. But he is looking tremendous out there, guys. I'm just telling you right now. He is going to eat into somebody's snaps. I don't know who that somebody is. I don't know. But the starters, I do think that's going to be Raylan Wilson and CJ Allen to open the season. I'm excited about those guys. I'm just saying, watch out. Not just for Chris Cole, but for Justin Williams as well, even though he did not play as much last year. And, those guys will go to the coaches clinic, and I was told coming out of the scrimmage last week, we talked about this earlier, that they had a big first spring scrimmage. So right now, I'm pre-recording this before you're watching. So I'm recording this actually on Friday. You guys are probably seeing this on Monday or Tuesday. So I had to go on vacation, going out, just taking a little break. I know it's weird for me. Don't usually do this. So I haven't had a chance. We don't know what's happening in the second spring scrimmage. So as soon as I get some information coming from the second spring scrimmage, if I get something, I will bring that to you guys. But just going off the first spring scrimmage, hearing really good things about both those guys at inside linebacker. So let's put this all together here. Maybe you can't sit here and say right now that this Georgia inside linebacker room is the most talented or best position unit in all of college football. Because at some point you have to go out there and you have to prove it. You have to prove that the recruiting rankings were correct, that you were accurately rated. Recruiting rankings are great. Being ranked high on paper is awesome. But again, can you play? You got to go out and prove that. But if what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing, even more so recently, coming out of spring practice is a sign of things to come in 2025, well, this Georgia inside linebacker room might just well end up proving to be the single best position unit in all of college football in 2025. But all right, guys, that's it. That's all I got for you here today on the show. Again, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel right now. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your day to watch this video. That's a huge help for us as we continue to try to grow this channel. So thank you for that. But please, if you have it in you, subscribe, like, comment, and of course, check out the Glory UGA podcast. We have a lot more content for you guys on the audio side of things. And if you're a diehard Georgia fan, I think you're going to love it. So make sure to check that out as well. But thank you guys. Appreciate you. I'm Tyler. And as always, go Dogs.
Man, is there going to be some property destroyed tonight. 26-21. Dogs on top.